Ever feel like your energy is leaking out even before the day starts? Like you wake up and you just say, I've got nothing. And the rest of the day kind of follows that script. And if you ask any MMA fighter, they're going to tell you that the one thing they can't overcome is a lack of energy if they gas out. And that has to do with stamina, that has to do with, cardiovascular shape. But once it's gone, it's gone. In a way, it's like age. We can only overcome so much. So the point is that energy is obviously a very valuable resource, and we want to treat it that way. We do nationally. Energy is a topic of conversation. But personally, we don't always do the right things. And that's fine. I mean, we have choices. We have the choice to not get enough sleep. Some of us do. Some of us just really have a difficult time sleeping. We have the choice to eat the foods that are going to support us and nourish us, or not to. So it's all good. There's no judgment here. But the fact is, no one has ever walked into the doctor's office and said, you know what? I have too much energy. I want less. And I mean, manic people aside, nobody does that. Most doctor's office visits these days are about a lack of energy. If you ask any professional, you are going to hear that from them, that people come to see them because their energy is waning or it's gone. And there's not an aspect of life that this does not affect, from production at work to the ability to have relationships, just everything. It's very core to what we're trying to accomplish. So today we're going to look at some of the things that will support energy and some of the things that will rob energy, because it just makes too much sense not to. We're energy leaks versus energy builders. And it so happens I am very tired today because I didn't get enough sleep last night. I made the unfortunate decision to watch the New York Giants, and it was a pretty late game, and afterwards I was PO'd, and I just simply did not get enough sleep today. So I need to practice what I preach, obviously. But when we're talking about energy leaks versus energy builders, we're talking about little habits that can drain you or that can support you and keep you going all day. All right, so let's understand, first of all, energy leaks. Energy leaks, here's how we're going to define them. We're going to define them as habits or stressors that keep your body in a survival mode, right? The survival mode that we go through, sometimes called sympathetic dominance, right? That's the scientific term, because there is the section of our nervous system, it's called the sympathetic nervous system, and it has to do with immediate energy needs. But it robs us of long-term energy, right? It's kind of a spike. I mentioned MMA before, and for those of you who have ever seen a UFC fight, every once in a while you'll see a guy have what they call an adrenaline spike. He'll come out and he'll be all psyched, and he will just go nuts. His adrenaline will spike, and then he will lose it. And when that happens, he is in for it. He just has to sit there and take a bunch of elbows to the face. And sometimes we end up taking a bunch of elbows to the face by life and by circumstances. Right. But obviously, if our energy is higher, we have a better chance of avoiding that. So we are concerned about cortisol and adrenaline. We've talked about this before. These are hormones. They are secreted by our adrenal glands. And if we have them going on a pretty chronic basis, then that leads inevitably to fatigue and brain fog, and also cravings as our energy dips. Our body says, okay, we need more fuel now. And sometimes it tells us we need fuel very often when we're not even hungry. So now not only are we lacking energy, but now we're craving things, and often things that are going to give us a quick energy, a quick boost, things that we'd probably rather not eat otherwise. Usually they come in the form of sugars or simple carbs. So we want to try to not get into that state, that, adrenaline and sympathetic dominant state. Okay. Let's look at a couple of things that will support us not getting into that state or will cause that state. Okay. Let's look at the leaks first. Number one, and this is a relatively modern phenomenon, is scrolling on your phone first thing. You get up in the morning, the first thing you're doing, you're checking your phone, right? So you are, instead of easing yourself into the day, you are becoming mentally overstimulated. We talked last week about a good morning routine. It wasn't prescriptive. We didn't say, you should do A, B, and C, but we laid out kind of a foundation, a structure of what can be done as a morning routine. And building energy should certainly be part of a good morning routine, right? Getting ready for the rest of the day. So you don't want to start out scrolling on your phone. You don't want to be doom scrolling, looking at what's going on in the world. To the degree you can avoid that, you will be better for it. Okay. Not hydrating. And this is something you hear about all the time, right? Everyone's telling you to hydrate. You're probably annoyed at people saying hydrate. Family members are doing it. People on TV are doing it. I'm doing it and whatever. But when we're not hydrated, we can get blood sugar dips. And nothing works efficiently when we're not hydrated. So I would encourage you to be hydrated. And as part of a morning routine, it's a good idea to drink a glass of water first thing when you wake up. All right. And then always the constant reminder, and I've said this so many times, like a mantra, and most people can't even hear it because they've just been hearing the opposite for the rest of their life. Hydration is not about how much you take in. It's not about how much water you drink. You are not going to benefit more if you drink 300 ounces of water a day. In fact, you might be putting yourself into some trouble if you do that. The key is to drink a proper amount of water. And we generally tell people, not to exceed half their body weight in ounces, and to have the right nutrients, to have the right minerals, and that will help your cells absorb the water. Okay, so think of it in those terms. Think of your body like a flower pot, and there's only so much dirt, so you could only absorb so much anyway. And if you want to become hydrated, then you want to make sure that you have plenty of dirt there. The minerals are the dirt. And you want to make sure that you don't just, put in so much that the flower pot is overflowing. Okay. Poor sleep quality. All right. Why is poor sleep quality bad? I mean, we all know it. We all know we have to get proper rest. But here's why it's bad. It's bad for a couple of reasons. First of all, it affects what's called the circadian rhythm. And we did talk about that last week as well, because our bodies are designed to take cues throughout the day, right? We have different needs throughout the days. And so this is how we've evolved. And we get those cues from light generally. Okay. So that's why it's recommended that you sleep in a very dark room, for example. That's why it's recommended that you get some first morning light outside, get it on your skin, get the sun in your eyes, try not to look directly at it. But it will give our bodies the right signals, and then the right hormones will be released at the right times. And that's the whole idea behind that. Okay. Secondly, the poor sleep is going to affect what we call your mitochondria, those little energy producers that are in all of our cells. And a lot of us have trouble with mitochondria as part of today's lifestyle. So when we talk about poor sleep quality, that's one of the things you hear a lot about too. There was a person a few years ago, she's kind of a political pundit, and she wrote a whole book on sleeping because she found it was that fundamental. And it is that foundational to our health. And yet most of us aren't getting proper amounts of sleep. Proper amounts of sleep, they consider between 7 and 8 hours. If you suspect that you have sleep apnea, it is a good idea to get that checked out. There are no good cures that I'm aware of for sleep apnea. Many people sleep with a machine, a CPAP. Nobody wants to do that. However, you are better off doing that than not doing it. And by the way, sleep apnea, you've heard of it. If you're not aware of what it is, it basically means when you stop breathing while you're sleeping. You can see why that's not ideal. Okay, so you do whatever you need to do so you can breathe while you're sleeping, because otherwise you're in a world of trouble. You're in a shit show. Okay? All right, good. Micro stressors, right? We talked about everything is micro these days. Microaggression and micro dosing. How about micro stressors? I don't even know if that's a thing. Maybe they're just stressors, right? Maybe the micro is just like us trying to make ourselves feel better about it. But clearly there's a hierarchy, and some things are worse than others, right? Divorce is worse than stubbing your toe generally. Okay, let's look at some micro stressors. Now, these are things also that we know about, but we don't necessarily do something about it, right? So I'll give you a few. One is clutter. Unfinished tasks, things that pile up, and they have the effect of draining your energy because they're draining your attention. You have a piece of your consciousness on these things that still need to be done that haven't been done. Now, listen, it's real easy to get crazy and neurotic, and we know people like this, right? They can't sit still. They're always worried that there's always something that needs to be done. And there is definitely something to be said for being able to just sit there, right? As the Buddha said, don't just do something, sit there. So it is necessary to make some choices about what is necessary to do, which backlogs to take care of. Chances are you're never going to be completely caught up, but you need to be caught up enough to breathe. And a lot of people find themselves in a situation where they're just not. And tasks pile up, physical matter piles up, cleaning needs to be done, organizing needs to be done, taxes need to be paid. I mean, we're just confronted with so much. I mean, you ever just want to be a shepherd? I don't think a shepherd a couple of thousand years ago was worried about all this crap. Right? They just said, okay, lambs, do your thing. They had dogs helping them out. They walked around with a staff all day. I mean, it sounds like a good life. I want to be a shepherd. But be aware of that, please. It's the kind of thing we can easily poo-poo, but you're better off not. Okay. Constant notifications. I don't know if you heard it, but my phone has gone off a couple of times in the last few minutes. All right. So again, it's an energy drain because it's an attention drain. Right? It's something it pings, and then you have to put attention on it, and it distracts you from other things, and it just creates another little stressor, a micro stressor. Okay. Rushing around. Who are these people who are always rushing but always late? How does that work? I mean, if you're going to be rushing, you might as well be early. But that was my phone again. But this rushing around, this frantic movement is generally not necessary. If you have a 20-minute ride in your car and you go 5 miles an hour faster, if you go 30 miles an hour faster, you're not going to get there much faster. You're going to save a couple of minutes. In the meantime, you're going to make yourself crazy and possibly get a ticket. I mean, silly example, but just think about it. I mean, you're much better off being calm and breathing and going about your tasks. There's a story. It's a joke, and it's actually a little bit dirty. I'm going to tell a clean version of it. How does it go? I think it's two bulls are standing on top of a hill, and the it's a father and son, and the son says, "Hey, let's go down and meet one of those cows, or let's run down there and meet one of those cows." And the father's like, "No, son, we're going to walk down there and meet them all." All right, that's the attitude we need to have. If you know the other version of the joke, keep it to yourself. Okay, negative self-talk. Oh man, if you're beating yourself up all day long, right? That's not exactly inspiring. That's not exactly going to create energy. How about this constant focus on the negative? It's very easy to get into those kind of cycles. And it's the kind of thing where it's a wrong setting on a GPS. Because at the same time, there are bad things going on, there are good things going on. I mean, not to sound like a Pollyanna, but obviously there's always a silver lining, but I'm talking about it more as a matter of focus, right? If it's all happening at once, and if even every bad thing has a ray of sunshine as part of it, why not focus on the ray? And that's what I'm talking about the GPS, about the compass setting, about where we're looking, right? The constant level of self-protection that forces us to look at the negative, and that becomes an energy drain also. Okay? So let's try not to engage in these activities to the degree that we can. Now, some people are just living in such a sympathetic state and so habitual that it's very hard to break out of those habits. And the best thing you could do in that case is a change of environment, whether that means, going away to Jamaica for a week, or it just means going somewhere else for lunch, or getting a mani-pedi, or whatever that is for you. I mean, to do something different, to try to just break out of those destructive patterns. It's a good idea. It's what the doctor ordered. Okay, let's talk about energy builders, right? And so the goal is we're trying to tell our bodies that things are okay, that there's no reason to leak all of this energy because things are good. All right. Now, simple examples. I mean, it's basically the opposite of what we talked about before. If dehydration is going to be stressing our system, then hydration is a much better attitude. So 16 ounces of water first thing in the morning, that will reduce the cortisol, that will improve your metabolism. A lot of people like to put lemon in it. It adds a little extra something. Some people will put some salt in there. If you get some good pink salt, for example, it doesn't have to be pink. There are good gray salts. There are black salts. The key with the salts, they are full of energetic minerals, right? But the key with them is that they are not killed by being put in ovens at 1600 degrees, and that kills all the nutrients in it. So some people will put a little salt in there, for example. Not a bad idea to put some apple cider vinegar. That has some benefits. All right. Getting some light exposure first thing in the morning, that will be an anchor for that circadian rhythm. I have said this to people, that melatonin production starts out in the morning. Now, you get the benefits from it at night because that is the hormone that helps you get to sleep, but it starts out with first morning light. That's when your body is signaled that it starts that process. All right. It's a cool and interesting thing. So you want to get that light exposure. That will help with that circadian rhythm, and it will also boost serotonin. Serotonin is one of those feel-good chemicals, so we want to do that, okay? A little bit of movement. Now, we're talking about this theme about micro, right? Why do we address things as a micro as opposed to as a macro? Because macros are hard to comprehend. Sometimes it's just too big for us. So instead of thinking about walking for an hour and a half, what about little 5-10 minute walks during the day? Like, what's stopping you from, I mean, I know what's stopping you, but even if you're at work, very often you could just go take a walk around the block. I mean, it's a good way to get out of your own head and to break up whatever destructive patterns you might have going on at the office at that moment. All right. If you have, listen, I'll confess that on a couple of occasions, I've had crazy people in the office. They're out there, and everyone has them. And if you're listening to me and you're thinking, oh my God, he's talking about me. No, don't worry. I'm probably not talking about you. But it happens. And they're yelling at me in the office, right? So I developed this thing, and I've done it twice. It's not like I've twice in 12 years. But I just started I just left. While they were talking to me, I just left. Now, this has two benefits. One is the possibility of them following me, in which case we get that bad energy out of the office. The other possibility is they don't follow me, in which case I'm out of that environment, right? So I actually made it a policy with my staff. I said, listen, if somebody becomes irate, just start walking. They will likely follow you, but at least this way you'll isolate them, right? So, I mean, the story is the story, but the larger point is the idea of just moving a little bit, just walking around. Most of us think we can't do. We have to stay chained to our desk, but we certainly can do it. Okay. Breathing or prayer or meditation. These things are known scientifically to activate the parasympathetic system. This is the opposite of the sympathetic system, right? This is long-term projects, feed and breed, as opposed to the sympathetic system. And I forgot the mnemonic. The sympathetic system is fight or flight. Thank you. Okay. So you want to activate the parasympathetic system, and that tends to lower that chronic inflammation. Breathing, prayer, and meditation are a great way to do that. Sometimes we try to activate our parasympathetics by eating food, especially comfort foods, and I would recommend trying to go this other route instead, okay? But we do want to obviously eat good, nutrient-dense food. Good, healthy proteins, for example. If you can do grass-fed, if you can do pasture-raised, these are much better for you. Produce, fruit and vegetables. Now, a good rule of thumb is to look for produce. Obviously, we want things with a lot of color. See, that color generally comes from the sun, and so that energy is passed on in that cycle. Okay, so look for colorful produce. Obviously, green leafies are always good for us, but there are a lot of other colors under the rainbow, and it is generally beneficial for us when food has color. Okay, and colorful foods like that, colorful produce, will stabilize blood sugar often and mood. Right? It kind of serves as a buttress or a buffer. Connection and gratitude. Okay. So this evening starts a holiday for some people, for Jewish people. It is the new year. It is a great opportunity to connect. In a couple of months, we have, Thanksgiving, Christmas. Plugging in is a good idea, and it's what we're meant to do. There's a fundamental problem with connecting, with plugging in with other people, for example, or other experiences, is that it exposes us. There's no chance of pain if you're very disconnected, or there's a smaller chance of pain. Unless you experience pain from disconnection, in which case it probably wouldn't occur to you to disconnect in that way in the first place. But the idea of connecting with ourselves, with our bodies, with our family, with our faith, these are very good for energy, as is gratitude. We talked about the GPS before. We can reset our own GPS. I'm not saying it's easy. Most of the time, that's a habit. That's an automatic thing that we don't think about, right? But if we can consciously choose to look at the smorgasbord of life, instead of looking at the bad, we can choose to look at the good. And some people do this habitually, and sometimes they're annoying, and other people just really struggle with this. I mean, really struggle. We all know people like that, right? And it's hard to like them. Ideally, we should have some sympathy with them. And the worst thing is when, and I think most of us engage in this also, most of us are that person sometimes, is like someone else is trying to tell you and trying to change your focus, like to the good, and you fight them on it. And you insist it's all bad, right? That is a pattern that we get into as well. And really, if we were more rational, we would just be like, okay, you're right. I'm shifting my focus to that simply because it's better than having the focus on the negative all the time. Okay, so each of these habits that we're talking about, they will literally change your hormones. They will literally change your neurotransmitters, right? Many of which have to do with feeling good and with being more present and less brain fog. Okay, so we want to do that. Now, okay, so here's a quick little exercise for you to do. Step one, identify 1 to 2 energy leaks that you do every morning or mid-morning. Okay. Step two, and I'm just saying the morning because it's an easier bite, right? If we just focus on the morning, we can confront that generally more than we can focusing on the whole day. All right. Step two, replace it with an energy builder. Okay. If each morning you tend to doom scroll, that is an energy leak. So now you replace that with 5 minutes of breathing. And that's an energy builder. And can you see how that would lead to a better day, a better mood, better results? Okay. Now repeat this. Do it daily for a week and notice your energy levels and see if it doesn't change. Notice your mood as well, because honestly, energy and mood don't always go together. You can be very highly energetic and still in a shit mood. But it is really hard to be in a good mood if the energy is low, right? It's like if you have a conversation with somebody, you say, hey, how you doing? And they're like, oh, I'm dragging ass and whatever, but I feel great. Like no one's going to buy that, least of all ourselves. All right. So to recap, energy leaks are like a sieve, right? They are draining your physiology, and they're doing it quietly and insidiously and probably without your awareness. Energy builders, on the other hand, tell your body we're safe, we're fueled, we can perform, we're ready for the day, we can take things on. All right. So I would encourage everyone to look at things in this particular frame. Okay. Look at things as a binary. You're either building energy or you're leaking energy, and then just try to tilt it over towards the energy building place. And if you do that, I think you're going to notice a difference. If you do it consistently, that's also obnoxious, right? We want a pill as opposed to small habits that we do consistently. We want to see that result right away. And if we don't, we get very transactional about it. But I tried this for a few days and it didn't work. You don't want to expend that kind of hope or energy, but there's no downside to replacing an energy drain with an energy builder. Okay. And if you need any help, of course, I am here. So, let me know, reach out to me. You can DM me, you can call me at the office, and I will do my best to help. All right. Thanks.